Newly stocked on the shelves is box number 512 with your hosts Aeon
and the Lioness,
Black,
trans
women,
women, and excellent.
and defying all life expectations
The show begins
now. Hey y'all, welcome back to box number 512 podcast, Grown Black Trans Women Talk. This is episode number 16. I am your co-host Aeon.
And I'm the Lioness.
Girl, but let's start here. Did you watch the BET Awards?
I did not get a chance to get it, girl, but I have heard all of the conflama, Miss Thing.
Um, I didn't get to watch it either. As I get older, award shows don't do it for me like they used to. So I just really wait for the clips to come online just so I can fast forward through all the stuff that I don't want to see.
Oh, yeah, that part, because it does tend to be a marathon, bitch.
Right, and I just don't have the patience to watch them. But from what I heard, for the most part, everything was good. Like for this to be the new normal, particularly for award shows, I heard that it was it was produced really good. Some of the performances were great, and I actually look forward to watching some of the performances back at a later time. But this is a grown Black trans woman talk with a lens towards everything Black and trans feminine. And a story came out of the BET Awards in regards to trans people. So even before the awards had aired, Angelica Ross, who we love at the show, she posted a status. Um, she made a comment on Twitter to BET, basically calling them out for having lackluster representation of Black LGBT people, because BET had an original post where they were celebrating like their 40 years of excellence, and they had like a little a minute clip show, and of course there weren't any identifiable Black queer people included in this 40 years of excellence. So Angelica retweeted it and basically called them out. So that was I kind of caught wind of that. And after the show aired, another Imara Jones, who is the founder and the director of Translash, which is a
Shout out to Lady Imara.
yeah, shout out to Imara, who I found out that is a native of Atlanta, Georgia, so work.
Yes, come on, Peach.
Yeah, so she is it's a multimedia company focused on trans people, and she came on my radar like as of last year, but within these past couple of months, she's really been getting out there, and I really like her work and I like her stance on her platform. So apparently, Imara did a commercial with McDonald's that was supposed to air during the BET Awards. And basically, and if you go to McDonald's Twitter's page, they actually have the commercial. It's only about like 30 seconds. But the gist of the commercial is Amara is on the commercial, and she's saying that if Black Lives Matter, and we're in this moment where Black lives are mattering, that Black trans lives should also matter, and we need to stop murdering Black trans women. Just calling attention to the murders of trans women that have continued to happen even since this new wave of Black Lives Matter. So I'm thinking, great point, spot on, right on time, and relevant,
Yes.
and would have been fabulous and amazing for BET to, in their spirit of social justice and all of that, it would have been amazing for them to also have this message while all of these Black people are tuned into the show. But for some strange reason, this commercial was not included in the show, and Imara posted about it on Twitter, and she basically called out BET, and it kind of leads us to conclude that them the logical conclusion is that them not including this very important commercial in the show, the only reason could be because of some type of transphobia or some type of intolerance toward this message that Imara was talking about. So, sis, what's your thoughts about this?
I think what happens is when you have competing factions within an organization, and what you end up having is them making what's called a safe decision. So here's my thought. So in order for BET to have even considered it, that means that there are some people within that organization that probably agreed or said that they would give time for this McDonald's commercial for that McDonald's sponsor to help, raise awareness to this issue. What happens is probably it got promoted that this was going to happen. And then you have this, unfortunately, Black respectability politics kicked in. So behind the scenes, they start getting emails from these fake woke ass professors and these wannabe motherfucking thought leaders and these supposed to be connected and grounded ass community advocates and spiritual leaders and all that jazz. And what ends up happening is they cave to the pressure because respectability politics says it is better for us as an organization that's trying to promote Blackness in general, for us to piss off a small group of people versus the larger group of folk who will feel uncomfortable by having their privilege checked. And at a time such as this, why are you checking Blackness? And that's what I can feel like people feel when they think about including us. They feel like to include us is to say that something that a part of what I believe is wrong. Because to include those people, somebody that I've been raised or trained or socialized to believe are less than, to include them in that conversation is the you telling me there's a part of me that has to be checked. And at this time, they want to get all the privilege they can, even if it's on our backs. So shame on BET for caving to pressure. Shout out to the obvious employees, maybe one or two, because I don't believe no corporation is corrupt all the way through. So shout out to the one or two BET employees that tried to do the right thing, but were overruled by assholes and people that are concerned about the dollar. Whew, that was lightning. Girl, wait a minute. And God said so too. Girl, listen. Let me summon my black ass all the way down, honey. But yes, it is storming boots here. If you don't bring your ass in out of that rain, leave this in, by the way, so they know what it's like living with a husky.
I don't know. I just feel like I do feel like within BET there are some people that get the conversation. But as a whole, especially in this moment, and again, this goes back to our conversation from last week talking about performative allyship. It literally would have cost the BET nothing to run that commercial. And even if they would have gotten pushback, it wouldn't have been something that they would not have been able to overcome. But just to see this happen time and time again, where an opportunity like this presents itself, but the powers that be are so interested in maintaining the status quo at the expense of us. At the expense of us having our voice and having our moment, I think is very unfortunate. And also, I really don't see much of watch BET anyway. And I feel like when they do try to do like the Black and queer content, it's not really a good faith effort because all of the content is relegated to like online stuff that you have to stream. It's like, no, put us on the main stage with everybody else so people are forced to watch us. Air us on TV. I don't want to be the online streaming. Like, no, give us airtime like everybody else. But I just feel like once again it's a missed opportunity, and it's just a bad reflection on them that you guys are not really engaged in systemic changing of the culture and like intentional critique. It's just like, let's just maintain the status quo and let's just be performative, but let's not really be committed to uplifting everybody. So I feel it's unfortunate to them, but for Imara, the fact that she's getting McDonald's to fuck with her and to give her a commercial, I think that is a fab look for our community. And no shade. See, this is the thing. Like black culture, y'all, it's like black culture misses out on so much good shit from us as black queer people, but we end up having to go into the arms of whiteness. Like y'all literally push us into the arms of whiteness because y'all don't want to fuck with us. Because I could definitely see MTV or VH1 picking up the ball and giving us all the space we need. Not saying that it's necessarily better over there, but you don't. It's not all of these internal
Well, I
black
think it also speaks to
respectability.
this, Bree. Like, what's even deeper painful about it is that it would have to go there to get light. That our
Right,
people aren't concerned about our lives, that they don't think that our lives matter, and that it bothers them to be for us to be included in that.
right. And then for them to turn around and gaslight us, like, "Oh, you could have came over here and we could have did this," and it's like, but you literally had the opportunity to do something and you cut the commercial. So it's unfortunate, but big up to Imara Jones. Big up to Trans Lash. Keep. I know it hurts. I know it's painful, especially when you're doing it for the right thing, the right reasons. I know it's frustrating, but you are definitely making an impact and you are making moves. And I can't wait to see the next thing. And BET, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, I don't watch. Like, they're not even good for black people. So I don't, I don't expect much out of BET when it
Are
comes
they
to
black
black.
owned?
No, the Viacom owns them.
I thought so. I was just trying to make sure that was known as well.
Yeah, so yeah, Viacom owns them as well. So yeah,
So
it's just,
when you really think you being woke, but you upholding white supremacy. Oops.
pretty much. But yeah, I don't. It's sad to say, but I don't expect much from BET. I just don't. But pivoting to our next topic, we did a live show on Friday, sis, that was really bomb, and I felt like the energy for this live show it was different, but we definitely touched on a lot of different topics, and you guys were really receptive to it. And I put some of the clips up on our Instagram page where you guys
Mhm.
really engaged,
Because we
and
got so much love. We really did. Shout
right.
out to our fans right now. So for those of you who missed it, we do a live every Friday. I'm gonna just promote that real fast. It's a box number 512 after show every Fridays on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And we're excited if you guys would tune in. But anyway, like my sister said, this week was fab. So shout out to everyone that participated. The engagement was the best we've ever had. And I just wanted to just take that moment to just big that up because that is now becoming one of my favorite parts of this process.
Yeah, and I always the link is always included at the if well on our Apple podcast, since most of our listeners listen through Apple. The link to our live show from the previous week is always at the included in the information section of our podcast. So make sure you guys are watching the live shows in addition to listen to the podcast. But we talked about a lot of good things. We talked about that phobia. We talked a little bit about the disclosure conversation. So basically, I brought up the live show to say this. We got we got a little bit of pushback because I did call some folks out for some things that they said, but this is social media, and if you put stuff out there, and if I want to talk about it, I'm
Hey, we got
gonna
pushback for our show, girl.
not for our show, but just for individuals saying that, and it wasn't like a big pushback, but people being mad that we had conversations about stuff that they talked about on their platforms. Like their platforms just exist in like a singular space and time, and we can't comment on them. But it's like if you say problematic stuff, like we are the trans woman show. Like we're going to give our opinions and talk about it, and that's the fact. It's like people feel like they can talk about trans people, and because in their mind we don't exist, or we're not articulate, or we're not educated enough to have these conversations in their mind, they're not ever expecting us to like feel some type of way or respond.
Exactly. And then enter box number 512 podcast, Grown Black Trans Woman Talk, and the Aeon and the Lioness. And now you have a whole new dynamic. And we are, sis, I believe we're really going to challenge people's ideas of what of the position that trans folks should play. And I am okay confronting that. So I thank you for bringing that to the platform, because baby, that conversation on Friday, darling, was fabulous, because I feel like we confronted multiple layers of issues that are like cancers in our community, in blackness, in particularly black LGBT community, in misogyny. Girl, we really just went in. So for those of you who have not tuned, please tune in, honey. Box number 512 podcast after show on our Facebook page, which is also box number 512 podcast. And it's up. And if you want to catch it, you will have a blast.
Yeah,
But
but yeah, but honey, but we're not going to shut up. We're not going to stop talking. I also saw a lot of people saying that oh, you're just trying to do clickbait to get promotion for your podcast, or you're chasing fame. And I want to like be real clear on this podcast in this moment. I know we are not here chasing fame like that. Like, we actually have real lives. We have real goals. Like, we do the show as an outlet. So nobody is here trying to chase fame. Are we trying to interact with you? Of course, especially if you're talking about trans issues and you're not a trans person. Of course, we're
right,
going to have something to say, but we're over here building a foundation, something that will be here long after we are gone, or something that will stand as a testament to our thoughts, our ideas, how we felt about stuff, our voice. So don't try and don't. And I've also been dealing with a lot of misogyny from cis black gay men who, every time you challenge them, it's like they just shut down and, well, this is my page, or shut up, and they block you. And I really need some of y'all cis black gay men to really confront that and examine it in yourselves. Why is it that your first reaction is to tell me to shut the fuck up? Like, why is that? Like why can't we have a conversation? And I, like I said, I'm not new to dealing with black cis black gay men in this way. Because even in the activism space, it was like a lot of times it will just be this overt misogyny, and it's like, no, we're not going to shut the fuck up just because we're saying something that you don't like. That's not how any of this works. This is a talk space. This is a conversational space. So we should all be able to say what we have to say. And in the face of you saying something ignorant, we should also be able to push back and counter that with our lived experience.
mm.
Like, it's just certain
Because
stuff
we're not telling you what nobody told us. We telling you what we know first.
right, right. So it's unfortunate, and I just feel bad for the other people, because when you just have that type of mindset that, well, I'm just going to shut down and I'm not engaged, it's like, well, you're going to come to a point where you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, and then you run the risk of saying stuff that you can't take back, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
to deal with the whole cancel culture. And I also want to challenge us to really question whether people are actually being canceled, because if you're still able to get monetized opportunities after you do something stupid, then such, you're not really canceled. It's just people
And so then
trying.
that's what really it is. So what we're calling cancel culture now is a stigma or the shame
Yeah,
of what you've done. And some
yeah.
people
It's
want to
actually
call
people
it
trying to
cancel
hold you
culture.
account. It's actually people trying to hold you accountable for the dumb shit that you say.
That part.
So I guess we say all this to say, please watch the live from last week. It was very entertaining, and we talked about a lot. And pivoting to the last little thing I want to discuss before we go to our main topic for today. It's been really a struggle for me to sit and see black cis women like really struggle and grapple with letting go of this like white femininity, like complex that is really supported by white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
So Kim Foster, who is like the leader of For Harriet, she put up a she's a black cis woman. She put up a status basically saying the same thing, like she's not critiquing black women for wanting to be feminine, but if their version of femininity specifically excludes trans women, that is really white supremacy, and like black
Mm-hmm.
cis women really need to like grapple with that, because like femininity that excludes other types of women is inherently like white supremacist.
Now, can you? Okay, so now I want us to take a second there, because I can hear people going, "Huh?" And
Right,
I know it's because people think that white supremacy is a tool and a mantle that only white people can have.
right,
And I think also no one has really pushed back on how we have internalized a lot of views about ourselves and about our voices and about our people and what they should look like and how they should act. All of those views were given to us by a system designed to oppress and control us. And so I feel like I wanted to take a moment right here to just take a pause and see, and now if you could, sis, can you tie this into, because you said how these black women are embracing ideas of white feminism and white supremacy. Unpack white feminism and what you mean when you speak of a white feminism, because some would argue feminism is feminism. So can you elaborate?
well, of course. So I like how Ashley Marie Preston breaks that down, breaks this concept down. It's like, you don't have to be white to enforce white supremacy or to benefit from white supremacy. So you could still eat from the crumbs of racist tables if are upholding white supremacy. What, in my opinion, how I break this down is basically in a nutshell is this: if you are if you are trying to live up to this binary that men are this and women are this, that is like rooted in this colonial thought, which is supported by religion and is supported by men do this, the men have these attributes, and women are feminine and women are in the home and they have these attributes and they have
Right.
vaginas and stuff like that those are constructs that like are inherently like colonial and rooted in white supremacy. What I have personally been seeing is black cis women also attempting to like uphold this binary, like, well, you're not like, you see it with the arguments that they use
Mhm.
against trans women. It's just like, well, you don't have a vagina and you
Oh, yeah, yeah,
can't.
yeah. The definition, defining womanhood based on a set of characteristics that not even all women have, like the
Right.
ability to bear children, the
Yeah,
ability to be able to have a pussy, ability to be able to bleed every month, the ability to be able to do all these things that are stereotypes and that all bodies, even female bodies, aren't able to do, and that doesn't make them any less woman either. Having a child does not make you a woman. It doesn't make you, it does not, that's not what it is that makes you who you are. It is a part of your experience and it is a gift that no one will deny. But you're right, sis. It's really it's them falling into that kind of narrow mindset that is given to them by an oppressor of what a woman is, the definition of it, the respectability of it, and how it should maneuver. When we know culturally around the world that women are diverse, but however, black people tend to be these arbiters of this ancient ideal of what is how a good woman's supposed to act, and that's why they even can overlook black women that are not as that are different, that are disabled, that they may see as unattractive or even heavy, and they can devalue them. It's because they're still trying to hold to a standard that is not them, and they don't realize it.
But even like when black cis women like espouse that, Like they don't even like societally, they're not set up to live up to that standard. All of that like pussy, woman, babies, delicacy in the house, that is a femininity that is only reserved and only works for white women or only benefits white women. Because black femininity and black womanhood, or like if you just want to be black cis womanhood, is just as queer and just as strange as black trans femme womanhood. Like, and it's because
I
black
get what
women
you're saying. When you compare womanhood to this like 1950s Beaver Cleaver ideal, where there's no stress in the house other than, oh my God, he hurt his leg. Like, whereas in the black world, we know how many levels of awesomeness black women have to be just to even navigate day to day moving around. So I get what you're saying. Their experience is just as queer, or as queer compared to the normal culture, queer being strange in this case, as
right.
ours as
Yeah,
black trans women. Like, we have more similarities than differences. Let me say
right.
that.
So when black cis women talk about
More
like
similarities.
you look like a tranny, or you look like a man, or why are you so strong, or like those type of insults that they hurl at us, like white society is also hurling those same insults at y'all, because y'all don't fit up to this traditional white femininity. Look at all of the memes and everything that people have to say about Serena Williams, Michelle Obama, like that type of stuff is real. And that as soon as a black woman gets in a position or is superior, it's like, let us tear down her physically, or let us kind of really try to challenge her femininity or her womanhood by comparing her to a man or comparing her to an animal. So I think I had made a comment like, a lot of the stuff that y'all say about us can also be said and be true about y'all, because y'all are not meant to inherit this white femininity. And the sooner that we can learn to decolonize our mind and to really challenge the gender binary and really eradicate the gender binary, then the better it will be for all of us. Because then black trans women we could still be doing us, because of who we are, we're always transgressing the binary. We're who we are challenges the binary, because we're showing that you can live outside of it and define womanhood on your own terms. But it will also be beneficial for black cis women, because they wouldn't have to feel like they have to play into these tropes to keep a man, or their strength wouldn't be seen as something that like as something negative about them. We could live in a society that supports them as being powerful black cis women, instead of them feeling like they have to be beaten down or they have to conform into a box, oftentimes to get a man who's not even worthy of them and can't even appreciate them. And it I don't want to say it concerns me, because I feel like this uncomfortability is necessary for us to evolve as like a community and like sisters and women. But it's just difficult for me to watch, like, because you want to feel like black cis women get it, because like to me, I see us as all sisters going through like the same thing with differences. But just to see black cis women like cling on to this, well, you have a penis, so you're a man, and I have a vagina, and I'm better than you. It's just like y'all are doing the same thing that white people are doing. And like, I just wish people could just step outside of themselves to see it. But it's all a process. It's all. So I try not to be too harsh, because between black cis men and black cis women, black cis women, because of our position in life, they're the first, even if they are transphobic or they are problematic, they're quicker to work through their problems and be there for black LGBT people and black trans women sooner than black cis men would. So I want to give graces to black cis women, because our position in life will make us have to join forces and make us have to see eye to eye sooner than later. And black cis women, have carried me through my journey in many ways, but it just is It's just difficult to see them to cling to what is comfortable to them, even though it's so toxic.
Right. I'm sorry. I was trying to mute for the storm and I'm forgetting and I try to come in, girl, and then you'd be missing me. I'm sorry. But it's amazing because I believe that we have to unpack the way, first of all, I think Black women, those of us that have achieved a level of financial success, because I want to also give Black women a shout out right now. Like we're doing as a people, Black women, and that includes trans women, as a people, Black women, we're doing really well as far as in some of the strides that we've been able to make for in our personal financial futures and our educational futures and for the futures of our families. And we are, and we have been the bedrock and the backbone of movement. Here, Black women, is where we must now remember that our white sisters, our co-workers, the girls in our neighborhood that are baking the cupcakes and doing all the extra shit with our kids and all of that stuff and great, that they at the end of the day have the ability to deny you at the polls every time. And if you look at how white women vote, I want you to understand that we as a people, we as Black women don't have the luxury nor the ability to ignore how white feminism has basked in this white pure privilege. No, you can't be Black. No, you can't be Latina. No, you can't be different. No, because we need to get women in the building. And they did it on the backs of all of the minority groups that actually helped start the movement. And so what we need to now do is take back our own power as Black women in general and stop dividing along things that do not serve us as a collective. Because meanwhile, we are one of the most violated, abused, marginalized, and murdered community, Black women in general, in the world. So Black women, we don't have the luxury of dividing out between what group we want to be okay talking about in Blackness, because Blackness in general is not something that any of us that is cis, trans, Black, Latin Black, anything with melanin, baby, anything Brazil, all the nations of Africa, anyone that is multiracial that does not fit into that European standard, we don't have the luxury in this time where we have someone in office that is in a place where they don't give a damn about social norms of conformity or trying to build bridges or heal. They want to destroy and take apart and make profit off all us. So what we have to do is come together. And I am disappointed, like my sister said, in a lot of the ways in which we allow petty shit to pull us apart. Petty shit. Because at the end of the day, we still the backbones for our families. We still taking care of our mothers and our kids and our families. We still going and getting to work every day and making a lot of times more money than our husbands. We still are still doing everything we can to be present in our children's lives. And all of it is sometimes thankless. And what we don't do is spread enough love to each other. And I want to challenge Black women to remember how hard it is to be a Black woman. And also remember that there are some Black women that don't even get love from Black people. So we need our Black sisters to love on us even more, because we know that in misogyny, anything different, anything feminine bodies are worthless in a misogyny world. You know why? Because we have moved on from Sandra Bland and no investigation was really done really deeply like that. And her name really is barely mentioned. The fact that Breonna Taylor is equally yelled as loud, we know why. And it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to be each other, be our sister's keeper, and that's sisters of all kinds. And I just want to challenge that online in the world, that we stop looking for reasons to hate one another and learn that I am nothing without you and you are nothing without me. And that we are all a part of God's body. And if you don't internalize that in your mind, you will be broken and we will be lost as a people because we will be fighting. And again, we are under attack, Black women. So let's stop that.
Yeah, and an acknowledgement of Black trans women does not take anything away from Black cis women. Like, just because we are fully acknowledged in the space doesn't mean that, like, that's a, and that whole argument is that if you let us in, there'll be less of you, or you won't be as appreciated. That's like white supremacy at its core, because white supremacy teaches us that there's only X amount of spaces for the different people. So we have to pick each other off or cannibalize each other in order to get that one space. And that's not what this is. Just because you acknowledge me, and like, what are we fighting for? Like, the affection of a man? Like, girl, no. Like, for me, that's not what it's about. Like, I don't like this whole competition, and I just want one day for that ideal to not even be on the table. Like, you can acknowledge my womanhood, I can acknowledge your womanhood, and we can be sisters together, like laterally, on the same plane. Like, it's not we're taking, like, but the whole idea that we're taking over, it doesn't even acknowledge that we've already been here. We've already been in spaces with you. We've already been sharing spaces and being in sisterhood with you. We didn't just get here. So I just hope that we can evolve to something else. But it's very painful, because you, like, it's just like you want your sisters to get it. You just want them to get it. But hopefully one day, everybody gets it, and we can all be more supportive of each other. So now we're going to turn to our main topic of the day. We promised you guys that we would do a deep dive of the Disclosure documentary. If you have not seen the Disclosure documentary, then spoiler alerts, you should have already seen it. We're not going to be like discussing stuff scene by scene. I think it'll be more helpful if we could just talk about things that stuck out to us from the documentary, and just what do we want to see going forward as far as trans representation in media. So are you ready to go first, Lioness?
I am.
Go ahead, sis.
Oh, so on Disclosure?
Yes.
So let me tell you what I loved about that documentary, and let me tell you what I thought could have done a little more of from the start, because there's nothing perfect.
No.
And I feel like every opportunity where transness is discussed is an opportunity to have a full conversation. And if I see that a part is missed, I feel a responsibility as an advocate, but also as an educator, as someone that that has dedicated their life to educating the world on trans people, and as someone that is a part of a thought leader now. I felt it was imperative for me to point out that everything wasn't perfect. However, what was great about it, sis, was that it articulated on so many levels the way trans people. First, they talked about how there was an absence of representation, and then how there were people that were being these parodies of trans women, and then how that affected America, and the narrative that people could laugh at someone that looked gender nonconforming on sight, regardless of where you are, what you are, whether you're transitioning or not. It gave the way media has programmed America is to laugh when someone that is gender nonconforming comes on, because why? We find that comedic, just on sight. So then, even though that wasn't necessarily the comedic intent, because there is not then the opposite representation on media of successful, happy, positive trans images, then you end up with people being left to guess, right? About like, what in the world are these people? Where in the world do they come from? What do they believe in? And I only have these select few images to go. And then I love how they talked about even when trans people were represented in media, that the trans people were, I guess the words I want to say, marginalized in a way that they, like how Black people were in the beginning of cinema, where they could only do maids and mammies and certain roles, where how trans people were relegated to being like hooker number 3, dead hooker number 1, certain like characteristics. And then when they showed the person that when they were
psychotic murderer,
psychotic murderer number 5, like it was just so many different levels. And then what they unpacked was how even the curiosity with our bodies led to having episodes on TV where you had a real trans person playing a role. Congratulations to Candace Kane for being able to play that role, because I want her to know that this ain't us critiquing you, sis. You did what you had to do, and because of you, there was some trans women out there that could know that they could be an actress. So there's no read for her. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, they talked about a scene where she was on a show, and the investigators, after they found, they showed it was a very brutal trans murder that she went through, and she talked about the experience of her not really kind of knowing all of what the other cast members were going to say. So she's laying on the ground, and they began to start saying, "Look how big her hands are. Look how big her feet are. Look at," and then they lift up her dress and say, "It's a man," and like. It was just it was a fierce moment.
Girl, I would have had to come up from the dead and be like, you know what? I'm out.
The fact that she could sit there was like, bitch, I live for you, Candace, bitch. That coin was severe. I know it was. But
and Hill Harper was in that scene.
Even more so. I would have got up and kicked him directly in his world. Anyway, girl. So all jokes. Of course, I'm not a violent person, but anyway, the point I was trying to make by bringing that up was that it just showed how like we went from no representation and then having these men win Oscar awards for representing us. And without ever looking at the fact that there's a whole fucking community of us wandering around on the streets that are talented, that have gone to Juilliard, that have gone to all of the drama schools you can imagine because we're talented people, darling. We've actually made movies and written scripts and we can do all of these things, but you refuse to look at trans talent. No. What you'll do is you'll go get a man and put him in drag and then compliment him on how womanly he was by giving him an award at the backs of the people he was trying to say he represented, but y'all supposed to be woke and advanced. Anyway, but it went from that moment in time to then bringing it forward to how like there was representation on TV, but it was negative, to how like where we are now, where we're able to have a more critical discourse, but you're still having pushback from the larger world from accepting that these people are normal and a part of everyday life. Now, here's my critique. My critique was though they did mention it, I would have loved in something about disclosure to unpack the misnomer of why Black trans women are being killed. I would love to have had that conversation brought in, and I would love to have had maybe it even talk just even in a more upfront tone about the severity of the world to tune in right now and be concerned that we're being slaughtered in mass. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I just would have loved just a little more like emphasis on that. I get that they wanted it to be like disclosure light, like, oh, now I feel enlightened, enough for people to get the business without making them feel too stressed. I get it. But I think we also should have that sting when we have people that are being chopped up and thrown in the lake. Amen. We're laughing ironically at how very things have been
Yeah.
shifted and how people can get lose the bigger picture, darling. And so while I appreciate that and it was fab, yeah, let's talk about it now. That was kind of severe, girl. Like I feel like if she was a white trans woman and was cut up in half like that, she would be the Casey Anthony story, bitch. Like it would be look what happened to what was the little girl name? John Bonet. It would be the John Bonet Ramsey story, girl. If it were, and that's being real. And that's like what we're saying, Black women. We in general don't have the luxury of dividing because when one of us is getting chopped in half, guess who we going home to lay with?
You.
You have the dude that took the time to cut someone in half and mutilate their face laying next to you at night, and you wondering why you getting beat, and you wondering why you mad at the trans women that he going to chop in half when you don't realize the same violent criminal of a man is laying next to you, and you're propping up misogyny when you try to tear down another woman based on characteristics that we all, if you really want to be real, if you're going off of these Eurocentric on TV, made for TV, made by Mattel ass bodies we see on TV, none of us really meet the standard. So let's all join together. Let's cut the bullshit. Let's remember that womanhood is also, there are butch. Shout out to my butches. Shout out to my studs and my aggressive. Shout out to the women, the female bodied individuals that don't consider themselves men, that are still women, that are also denied when you try to make femininity this little pink and bows and uterus and children and you got to live this lifestyle and have a husband. No, fuck all that. Womanhood is diverse and we have to acknowledge all parts of it if we trying to get free, because quiet as it's kept, a lot of us standing on the back of some of them strong women we try to ignore. Now that part.
I enjoy the documentary. I thought it was very insightful. I also think it was heavy because I think one of the highlights in the documentary were the scenes with Jen Richards, because like a lot of times she would say shit and I would be like, bitch. Like she really shot straight to my heart with some of the stuff that she said. But one of the first things that she said at the beginning of the documentary is for every trans person, you have like this catalog of media in your head of like different trans representations that you've seen over time because there have been so few. And also I like how they frame that media. I like how they really frame how the media representation is so important because there's so few portrayals, and because mainstream America really, they don't have any personal references for trans people in their lives, so they rely so heavily on media representation. So it's imperative that we get it right. Also, I feel like this documentary has reveals the fact that y'all niggas actually do know who we are because y'all have been making fun of us and putting us in movies since the beginning of actual movies. So it's just like I kind of like this narrative. I really like how they really went back into history and how they just went back into history and was like, and it gives you the sense of comfort as a trans person because people always try to tell you that you're crazy or you're doing something new that's never been done before, and it's like, no, for every trans person that there actually was in history, there was also some sort of other movement to silence them and to erase them or to make them funny or to and do all of these things to take away their humanity. So I really love the historical aspect of the documentary. Um, one of the things that was interesting to me, it was this Asian trans woman, and she was talking about how when people would meet her and find out that she was trans, they would always ask her, "Have you seen this movie about trans people in Butterfly?" Have you? And she said it would happen all of the time, and I kind of feel like it's similar with my experience where it will be like, well, have you like, do you know who RuPaul is? Or and it kind of speaks to like how powerful media representations are, how like if people don't actually know a trans person, they know this one representation, even if it's good or it's bad, and they kind of use it to predict like who you are as a person without ever getting to know you, to try to put you into the box. And it kind of speaks to the power of these representations. And I think Jen had brought up a narrative of how when she first told somebody that she was trans, her friend had told her, "Oh, you're trans like Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs."
Wow.
Buffalo Bill, who was a serial mass murderer and who
Girl,
would
I know exactly who you're talking
who
about.
would
Who
collect
dressed in
women
drag. Yeah.
and skin them and wear their skin. So he could be, but it again, it goes to speak to the power of media representations, and how if you have the wrong representation, how it can really impact actual people from that community. Because I'm pretty sure it's probably still people who don't like trans people or don't know trans people or who refuse to watch Pose, and their only reference of trans people is Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Exactly. Or who laugh at trans people on site because they genuinely have been only trained to see people like Shanae and people that look like Joanna Man and people that look like, all of these things that have our slurs that have been lobbed at trans women because they think that's funny. And they genuinely don't realize how what can be funny can also be dramatic, triggering, and perpetuate a narrative that is getting people killed.
Right.
Because if you don't take my life seriously, and when I'm navigating and you think it's funny, then it doesn't matter as much sometimes to people that are already sick and on the fringe and depraved and have an agenda or are emotionally disturbed and looking to have a victim. They look at our community as someone that everyone laughs at. So then that is who we can take out this rage on. And so then you're inadvertently, by not taking trans lives seriously, you're inadvertently encouraging people to not take our lives or our murder seriously. And it makes us more and more of a target. That's really what we're saying. I think Black people think that we're blaming them specifically and individually, all Black people are the cause. What we're saying is that your silence communicates to predators that no one cares. That's all we're saying. If you would just muster up just a little bit of get up and go about it, just a little bit of BET, just a little bit of just come on, BET, come on, girl. Like if we could just get up and just a little bit of get up and go, we could actually do great change to make people who are preying on us, the predators, be like, oh shit, let me stop, let me not. Let me handle these girls with a little more grace, because see, people looking now, they caring, it's gonna be a thing. Like, I can't get away with saying no more, oh, the nigga tricked me. I can't say that anymore when now the world is observing and caring and are getting outside of themselves and putting themselves inside the mind of what it's like for someone that's just your neighbor, that's around the block from you, that has done you no harm, being killed, and most of the community not saying a fucking word. Like, we gotta, as a people, do better. And I feel like all of our topics today, if we could sandwich them, it's also remembering to include Black trans lives, Black queer lives, Black non-conforming lives and experiences, because we don't have the luxury.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, this document, it was just so many gems from this documentary that are true to life. Um Also, Jen also brought up another good point in reference to like cis men who play trans roles, and she said that she feels like cis men playing trans women is a direct link to the violence that trans women experience, because and she explained how men have in this head that these trans women are really men tricking them, and it kind of feeds that tricking narrative. And they showed when this man who played a trans woman won the Oscar award. It's like, this is the image. This is the image that people have, that, oh, you might be playing a trans role, but really you're a man and you're gonna go accept this award with facial hair. And she kind of compared it to when you have actual trans women play actual trans roles, when these people see these trans women like out of their role and then their regular life, people can see that they're still just regular trans women, and that kind of visual makes an impact. Um, Also, I liked how they talked about the crying game and kind of like the snowball effect of that movie. I don't think I've ever seen the crying game, the movie, but it's something that has been referenced a lot, especially in Black culture. Like I've heard it referenced a lot in other TV shows and music, and just the I like how they talked about how another, like we're either like trans folks, we're either jokes, or we're either like things that you can be, it's okay to be violent towards us, or it's okay to have like a a reaction towards us of being like sick and vomiting. And then they, like after the crime game, they had like a list of films when a man found out that the woman was trans, he just vomited or got sick. And it's like that messaging, like that constant messaging, teaches us that, you know, trans people are disgusting, that we're sick, and that we're not like our, you know, we're not, our bodies are not something to be, you know, joyful or pleasure. It's something that's repulsive. And that, you know, that's a powerful image. And for me to not even have seen the movie, but to have heard about it, like that movie really had a like an impact on us.
I agree. I agree. And I feel like we, part of what people don't get is I'm somebody's child. If we could, all the mothers out there, all of the parents out there, if you could wrap your mind around the concept that you could bring something in the world that you think is beautiful, that may not be perfect in everyone else's eyes, but to you is perfect. And everything about what God gave you feels like a blessing, and you feel like part of your purpose is making sure that this blessing knows that it is a blessing. And then to think that now you or your child could go out and see someone else's blessing and just tear down that blessing and tear that person that they don't belong, and then not even be concerned when that person that you went to school with, that person that was at your elementary school, that person that was at your high school, that person that's in your community that you saw all the time is gone from someone that was depraved enough to kill them and dismantle their body. And the notion that as a parent that doesn't do something to you, it makes me wonder sometimes how much parents really say they are really, really understanding what true love for a child is. Because you have to love other people's children. You have to know that you're responsible, that other people are other people's blessings, that these people are doing the best that they can to support these babies and help them be good human beings. And that's children of all ages. I know even mature parents that are still concerned about their adult children and want them to succeed and are doing the best that they can, investing in them, helping them when no one will hire them, trying to send money to these babies, trying to empower them, trying to do the best they fucking can to keep their child from dying or being killed. And one of your children or you is coming and slaughtering them down, and we all stand around silent. Why? Because that's an undesirable. And I'm only concerned about my child, not realizing that there's a mass murderer amongst us. And all of your children are vulnerable, because when people think like that, you don't know what difference they're going to decide tomorrow is going to be something they're going to go after. We have to eradicate evil wherever it is. And I think that it's important that I draw that analogy for our parents out there, because I think people miss what they say they're trying to do. You cannot be concerned only about your child and miss the ecosystem and the environment that they're growing up in if there are people out there slaughtering other people's children. We have to remember to have empathy in times like this. because we don't have the luxury, again, as Black people, to not come together. And I'm reiterating that in this because I feel like all of these topics are, once again, us trying to say the same shit over and over again to the larger Black community, that we love you and we want you to love us back, and stop aborting us as if we're nothing. As if our lives, our gifts, our parents, our families, our husbands, and our communities don't matter. As if the people that are invested in trying to make us succeed aren't doing the best they fucking can to help us, while you trying to tear us down. So you're tearing your own people down, not just the one trans person you see. When you kill one of us, you are killing off the hopes and happiness of a lot of people for that person. And you have to remember that we are all human.
Also, I think it's important to remember that we have to question the images and the messaging is being fed to us about who trans folks are, just like we have to question the messaging that's being fed about who we are as Black folks, because it's a very like intentional. It's very intentional and it's very powerful.
Yes, girl, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'm sorry, girl. It's just this
No,
topic.
that I think that's the beautiful thing about this documentary is that all of the bad messaging about trans people, it was all intentional, and it all achieved this desired effect. Like again, from trans people being as characters, us being murdered all the time, or when people find out that we're trans, they're vomiting about they're throwing up in response to who we are, or they get ill, or they get violent. Also, they brought up a good point about how we're always prostitutes or escorts or in like some type of black market thing, but there's never an explanation given as to why we're in those professions. It's just like, so then it creates the assumption that, oh, this is just what they do, but is really no further explanation to give. Well, why are trans women always in these roles, or why are they always associated with this work? And like the people know, but again, it's very deliberate to push a narrative or to push an agenda about who we are. But I guess it also what's her name? Candace Kane, when her character debuted on Dirty Sexy Money. Now I didn't watch that show, but I remember when that happened because it was a big deal. Bitch, her character debuted on Dirty Sexy Money, bitch, and they modulated her voice down like 3 octaves. Like it's stuff like that cis folks are intentionally doing behind the scenes to like promote a narrative. And I'm so happy that this documentary existed so we could like really pull the layer back or pull the rock up to see all of the bugs under it, to see that this shit was intentional the whole time. But it just goes to show how late people are. Like it's just like you can't even let people be kind. Like we can't even be kind and be the beautiful creatures that and just live our lives without it being some type of angle that cis people are trying to get out of it usually at our expense, at our humanity.
I have a question for you now, sis.
Uh-huh.
So what I love about my sister, and this is her mantra, I'm about solutions. So now, what, in your opinion, would be a good solution for people that are listening right now that are empathetic to what we're saying, that are saying, gosh, this is really affecting me. Like, I really get it. But what the fuck do I do? What am I supposed to do at hearing that BET is doing this? What am I supposed to do at hearing you guys point out very good points? But where in the ecosystem is it for me to get in? What do I do, and how do I get a part of it? Now, mind you, everybody has lives and busy, so we're not saying. And I can see people saying, I'm like, if y'all, like we were saying about Black women, I can hear a lot of Black women saying right now, yes, but I have all kinds of practices with my 3 children. I have all kinds of events and things. I have a life. I have a full-time job and a husband, child. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Or I have a wife and I have a family, or I'm homeless, or I'm struggling. Like, what are some ways, I guess, that people can, without like breaking the bank or reinventing their lives, help us drive home our representation and some of the things we've discussed in disclosure and stuff like that?
One, I just think is simple stuff. It's just challenge. I think it's just challenging what you see. Like, who wrote it? Is it written by trans people? Is it trans people in the writing room, or like what is the story? Or I don't think it requires like the layperson to do anything, because really, in reference to this disclosure conversation, this is in reference to like what Hollywood should be doing, what media should be doing, and how they really need to dismantle structures of racism and homophobia and transphobia, so we get more diverse and accurate representations on TV. I feel like as far as everyday people, like, consume what you want to consume, but just know if it's related to a particular community. I just implore you to just research it a little more and question, um, like, what is the intent of the art, or who's a part of it? Because I think like who is playing a part in the work matters. Like, I like how they in disclosure, how they brought it to today's time, and they were talking about Pose and all of these other shows. Like, the fact that specifically in Pose that these stories feature trans women of color, but not only are they in front of the screen, the trans people are also behind the screen. They're in the writer's room, they're in the director's chair, they're producers. So it it makes the story more complex, and it's more layered, and it's more nuanced. So I think for the regular layperson, just question what you're watching. Just question what you're watching, and just push back, or something is based in history. Actually go and look up the history and see, did it really happen like this, or did Hollywood cut something out? And that goes back to when they were talking about Boys Don't Cry. Bitch, I didn't know that it was a black man that also died in addition to Brandon Tina. I thought it was just Brandon Tina that got murdered, but it was actually a black cis man who was his friend, who was also murdered. That they discussed him in the documentary of Brandon Tina, but they totally whitewashed and
Now,
erased him
ain't that
from
the
the
gag,
movie.
girl?
And they also talked about the movie Stonewall, how that was a whitewasher. So I think with the regular layperson now, because of the renaissance that we're having in the trans community, because of so many voices, now the regular person has access to much information and so many perspectives, and we have to start recondition ourselves to think that if question it, or do a little research. If you do a little research on Stonewall, you will see that this was not no movement started by some white twink that came to the village in 1969, that it was actually led by queer people of color. But I kind of, the beauty of this film is I think it kind of challenges the average person to question and to push back, and to really look at like the collection of movement movies or pieces are saying, what are these things saying to me, and should I question them? But yeah, I feel like as far as Hollywood, I feel like we're going there. My personal critique, especially in reference to trans women on screen, I want to see even more diverse storytelling. And when I say diverse, I don't want to see conventionally attractive trans people of color. I want some regular looking bitches like myself on TV. I want to see some big dark skinned bitches have some sex scenes as trans women. Like, I want us, as far as our representation, to go further and to push it further and to tell more stories. And I personally don't have a problem if trans women or trans people are going to be sex workers in the story, but I definitely want some context, because I feel like even in the sex work world, a lot of trans folks have different motivations for wanting to be sex workers, and and not every trans person that's a sex worker is out on the street as well either. So I just I want us as a culture to not get caught up in like like either the Janet Mock exotical trans, like that's the only acceptable trans image, or like the Amaya Scott. Like it's a lot of us out here that are regular looking, that are still gorgeous and beautiful, but are like living like full lives and whose story needs to be told. I want to finish working on my script for my show that I want to do, I want to see more dark skinned trans women on TV. I don't feel like it's enough of that. So I really feel like we as a community have ways to go as far as our own representation, and we're not finished yet. But for the regular people, just question what you're seeing. Just, like everybody likes to say, "Oh, gay people or trans people, y'all have an agenda." But what this documentary shows is that no, y'all bitches are actually the ones with the agenda. And for the longest time, you've actually been successful at it, and that's led to like the fucked up lives that we've had to lead over the years. And now we're starting to reach a turning point. So we got to you got to question the image that you're seeing. Now, what I will say, one of the best parts of the documentary was me finding out about who Sandra Caldwell is. Now, bitch, as long as I have been black and queer and trans, and I like to think that I know everything and I know everybody, but to know that there was this black regal trans woman who's been in all of these black ass movies, just being regal and, you know, just acting and just being in the mix, knowing that she is one of us, bitch, I gagged. I gagged. I fucking gagged,
It was
bitch.
gagging for me too, girl. Like I was like, oh wait, wait, and then I was like,
first I was
wow.
like, who
So
is
if
this? I was like, who
they
is
not
this?
rushing to buy her story, bitch, if they're not rushing to buy her story, whoever, they better get that bitch movie rights ASAP. Janet, if you got a girl, listen, call your people. Y'all better get her story, because that woman there has a tale to tell.
Right, bitch. I was like, who's this Aunt Carter on screen? Like, who's? And then once we got in, I was like, bitch. I was like, she is cut. I'm like, where has she been? I'm like, why am I just learning about her? And this is why I no longer say I'm the first anything, because we really don't know like where trans folks, especially black trans folks, have existed. And because we had a lot of us, especially back in the day, we had to be so, or the powers that be, even in the black community, have erased our stories. We really don't know when and where we existed. So I know I no longer say I'm the first anything. I might be the first like open or visible, but I don't want to disrespect the history of the people that came before me and that were doing stuff in the shadows and the silence, so that, you know, we could all be open today. But like learning about her was it was just more confirmation that, like, bitch, we've been here. And she was in like black ass movies.
That's the gag. That's the gag. And girl, listen, I was like, you know what? Like you said, I don't even want to say first on the internet no more, bitch. Because you can't say that. You don't know. You don't know nothing about nothing. The only thing you know is that people came before you had to survive in a world where it was illegal, where down south they call them crimes against nature. And you could literally be locked up just for getting caught in existence. So, and that was until very recently. Some of these laws weren't even changed until the 90s, into the thousands in some precincts of Louisiana. So let's not get it twisted. We live in a world where it has been criminal to be black and exist and be trans in this world and just maneuver. And it was violent, and it's always been violent, and it still is. But yeah, like my sister said, like the idea that this woman, do you understand the landmines, darling? Do you understand how her dating life had to be set up? Do you understand how like her whole like I can't even imagine what it was like to like have
because she doesn't look like Tranny Lish. Like she looks like your mama or your auntie in the like she has a bit like,
and she talked about in the documentary how it was like I just when did we all get free all of a sudden when she started seeing the girls on TV? Because she was like, wait a minute, nobody told me. Because she has still had to navigate all the way up until very recently as still wondering and worrying if somebody would just completely ruin her whole life by telling her business. Like, that is intense. And so that's why I said her story, oh my God.
Yeah, but if not for nothing else, I'm glad I got to discover who she was, and I look forward. And like, even I remember watching the Cheetah Girls, and I just thought like she was just some black lady. I didn't know like she was in Cheetah Girls, bitch, the first Cheetah Girl. Like, so it just goes to show that like even when you're not paying attention to us, even when you try to discredit us, even when you try to remove us, BET, like we have always been there. We've always been in the backgrounds. We've always, been with y'all. It's just like y'all have never given us the space for us to really acknowledge ourselves in that way. So I'm just really happy that I got to learn a little bit about her story. I definitely look forward to seeing more of her and to hearing more of her. And I
Mm.
also look forward to unearthing more of our history. Like to me, it's just so affirming and so powerful to me to know that not only like did we exist, but like we existed and did some like big shit even in the 1800s, or even like I want to know about the slaves that existed, the trans and the queer slaves, like because now I know that they existed. And now
Exactly.
and,
Thank God for the internet, girl. Shout out to the internet, because there's some things I would have never gotten in at Southeast Regional Library in Hopkins, South Carolina. I would have never gotten it from my local library. You see what I'm saying?
right.
And there was no amount of researching in the world that would have given me access to what the internet has emptied up, what has made available to these youth now. And I'm proud at how that exposure to information has informed them and has empowered them to just be these whole new creatures that don't even feel like they have to fall to any type of stereotypes or boundaries on gender and expression. So I shout out to the people that are younger, because that just me just be thinking, just be contextualizing like the idea that this lady had to be flawless for so much of her life socially, in order for this to work. And then how she said it was just like she looked up one day and it was like, what? The idea that, like how the slaves were read out at Galveston, they were read out the slave decree and they were told that they were free. Like, we didn't get like this transformative moment. It just was like, oh, we're interested in y'all now. Okay, cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like we forget that the media and its fascination with us has not necessarily aligned with the protections that we particularly need, or the interest in us in a way that is holistic. And so, yeah, like shout out to, I forget her name, and I'm really upset that we're not able to say it here on this platform, because
Who?
it's box number 512, the actress.
No, her name is Sandra Caldwell.
Shout out to Sandra Caldwell. I'm glad that on Box Number 512 podcast, we took the time to speak your name, because that is powerful. That is powerful. And if you ever want to come to us to tell your journey, we would love to have you. Amen.
No, but that was unexpected. That was bomb. I really enjoyed it. And also to know that she was a part of the ballroom scene too. And it's just so much talent that comes out of especially from the trans community, that comes out of like the ballroom scene, or the trans that comes out of the trans
Shout out the
community,
ballroom.
or like it comes out of the drag community. Um, so yeah, I live, but overall, I feel like Disclosure was a great documentary. I feel like all cis people need to watch Disclosure, because they are easily susceptible to the images of how transness is portrayed in the media. So I just feel like they need to watch it, and I feel like the biggest thing that regular people need to get is that you should be questioning everything, especially media. You just have to question it because it's always a motive. It's always something behind it. And if you like do your research, especially on something that's supposed to be historical, then you will get the real information that Hollywood decided to leave on the cutting room floor. And a lot of times that stuff they leave out are like the most important pieces. And you have to think about, well, why would they leave this out?
Exactly.
Or why is every trans person that comes on CSI, why are they a prostitute? Why are they always being killed? So
Why were the only girls that were the only people that I could really identify as trans women on Jerry Springer? Why is that some of the girls even first time seeing themselves on TV?
right, because no shade, that was the first time I saw not just trans women, but trans women who were like bursting and just
No, no, no. Same for me. That was my first time seeing, because I remember seeing drag RuPaul as a child, and people, and I remember going. Now RuPaul was the first being that made me know, hey, it's possible now. Hold on, what's this now? And then when my mama said that's a man and he come out of it, I was like, oh, that's not me. And I was, I was just thinking that it's not me. And so it wasn't until Jerry Springer started coming on, and I remember being in high school watching it and going, oh, damn it, that's what it is. Because these people are saying this is who they've always been, and that's who I've always been. And so it was just an easy correlation. So shout out to Jerry Springer. But the unfortunate part about that is in my youth, I was able to see myself, but in what light? And at what expense to those women's dignity did that show kind of put them on? You know what I'm saying?
right, but it's so many legendary and iconic girls that have been on, girls that are still living that once were on that show. And yeah, Jerry Springer was a lot, but Jerry, like, especially like the look, like those girls on Jerry Springer look good, and it was just like, well, girl, if I want to be a girl, like this is it. So,
and that's where they would also show a lot of, shout out to my brothers, that's where they would show a lot of the trans men. That's where I really would see a
even
lot.
though they didn't really call them trans men, which was kind
No,
of fucked
they
up.
always made them say, I'm a girl. And it was
Right.
like, he's clearly a man. Like, there's no way that you're trying to tell me that that's the way this happens. Like, even as a child, I was like, what nigga would say that? Like, and that's why I was like, because in my mind, I guess I could identify as someone that felt as a woman. I remember saying, like, what nigga that would go through his whole life that would even lie for 6 months or 12 months or whatever the little storyline was, because these were paid appearances in a lot of cases. But shout out to the people that I know that did it, girl. Get your money, sir. Get your money. But yeah, like it was just amazing that they talked about how those shows in a lot of ways were gave certain people a platform, and that people went on those shows because it did lead to other things. Now let me ask you, how did you feel about? I dislike Arsenio Hall in a way that I never really. It was already a side eye for me, just in general. Just all of it. Some of the things he says sometimes, some of the way he carries on, and the whole like, I don't know what's your TTs and all that. Well, the idea that he asked that woman that question about her genitals, like the idea that he felt comfortable on live TV doing that to her, like it just was so cringing. It was so cringing. It was so cringing. Cause I was just like, damn, like, as a Black man, you being fascinated with that woman's it just was so, that was a part of it where I was like, damn, Arsenio, I didn't even, that missed me, and I wish I didn't know that about you.
I just think that as cringeworthy as that was like that was the era back then, which actually lasted until recently, until Laverne got Katie Couric together on her show. But it's just that was the narrative for us when we went on shows, that people thought it was choice to talk about our genitalia. And also we really didn't have a space for us to like reclaim our bodies and reclaim our identities in a way where we can have like frank talks about our genitalia if we want to. So, and I feel like T.S. Madison kind of ushered, when she came on the scene, she kind of ushered in a new era as far as the like non-op and the pre-op girls to really to like reclaim that conversation and talk about it how we want to talk about it if we want to talk about it. But I just think I'm just happy that we have this documentary so we can so people can't be like, well, I wasn't like that. It's like, actually, since we have the clip from 1991 where you asked this lady, like it was you. Like it was you, and we need to know it and we need to see it. And you can choose to be accountable or not, but we need to see it so we know how bad it was, so we can know how good we need to be in the future.
So, and you're speaking to, when you say that, you're talking about the idea that like people don't want their stuff to be discovered.
No, people that have like done something proud. Like I could see
in their
Oprah's.
past. I get what you're saying. Like the people that have like for example, if God, I don't, to my knowledge, Jesus, I don't know, I don't have nothing, but because the girls will seek it out, bitch. But it's because I want to speak with humility. I don't know. But I don't think I have nothing crazy because I'm not that kind of person. And I've genuinely always understood that I was going to be somebody important, no shade. So I've always tried to like keep my mouth a certain way, So I feel confident in saying that I do believe that it is important that we know the full scope of a person. However, I am less likely to judge someone when it's a period of time that has passed. And let me tell you why. Because I know that I am an entirely different human being than I was at 21. I mean, I'm not saying as a trans person, because that's not what I'm saying. I was trans at 21. I'm saying at the way my mind thought, the way I saw the world, the way I thought, the person I imagined I was going to be, the things that I held as important, the materialism, like as a child, the way that and I consider that now at this age, child, you know what I'm saying? I'll be 37 next month. And, month after next, praise the Lord. I don't want to rush it. I'll be 31 and 37 in August. And, it's just one of those situations where I just see myself and I see the evolution of a human being, and I don't want to be a part of I see it because I want to see it, but I also want to be able to contextualize when was it done, how have you lived your life since then, was it ever addressed? Because see, now I do believe that it could be addressed now, because I need to know if I can't see it in your works that there was an evolution, I should at least be able to question you on it and get you to give me the statement that you, because then I can. But if it's reasonable and I can see that you don't have a history or a pattern of it, and it's just a one-time slip, yeah, okay, I'm able to forgive some shit because I know I've done some shit in my life. I am one of those people that have empathy and I understand what it is to evolve as a person. I have not been a great person at all points in my life, always, and I'm sure everyone can identify with that. So I get it, but I do also feel for those people that we have said, okay, bitch, yeah, the verdict stands. You are problematic. What is the pathway to redemption? Because at a certain point, the movement loses validity when it feels like we all can be canceled at any moment. Does that make sense? It's like when people are now using the internet as a way to wield the sword and to point at someone and say, get them. Like when people are using their fan bases and to shame and to drive people into seclusion and like get them to lose their job or get them involved in shit like that. Like I see the way in which the way we move as a people now is positive, in that we can, as a community, of human beings, decide what we think is right or wrong. But a problem with human beings as in mass deciding anything is that usually when the mass has decided and you're with the mass, you should probably question why the fuck where everyone agrees with you. You shouldn't be I personally feel when you're in agreement with when you're always in agreement with the majority, you have a problem. because that means there's a whole group of people that you're ignoring. And so I don't like how the culture just turns on one person and overnight you are nothing to anyone without anyone investigating based on a video or live or YouTube. Like, that's scary to me. And as I sit on this platform, I guess that's why I feel I always need to say, we're not canceling anyone. We're not going to do that. That's not, because it's not that I don't think that people are worthy of being canceled. But I feel like in cancel culture, the people who are really, really impacted by it are the minority groups primarily. Because in a lot of cases, we've had to find these secondary ways to get our voices out. We've been rejected by mainstream. A lot of our talents aren't being received in the ways that they should be for those of us that are creators and actors and actresses and things of that nature. Like, so then we're creating these platforms, and then eventually cancel culture will then do what it inevitably does, get tired of really being about what it says, and then turns racist. And so, like, I don't want to be a part of that movement where then we're canceling groups of people. Because it just feels like at the end of the day, we all deserve an evolution. And even if someone does make a mistake, provided that you didn't murder nobody or you didn't stab nobody, I don't believe that no one is worthless and not worthy to be a part of our community. So even a racist, what is our strategy to help convert these people, or to, because we can't, I mean, because, you know, you'll have the radicals in every group saying kill them all on the other side. And I'm not that girl. So, like, I guess I'd be wondering sometimes, what is the strategy? And this is rhetorical, but like, what is the strategy of us as a people to like rehabilitate human beings in a way that is healthy and productive to society, that may have problematic views, that may have done problematic things, but that may not have rise to this level of them being treated like a social deviant. You know what I'm saying? Like, being ride to the level to where for the rest of their lives, millions of people will remember them in shame. Like, what is a way we can address these concerns, call out the bad characters, the people who do need to be shamed? Let's do it. But let's take that energy, and I kind of be nervous about turning it on Blow Joe and not the big corporation, or not even, or at least not spending the same kind of energy. And I feel like the world is getting to the point where the lenses of the big are turning on the mighty, and we're burning little people like ants under a microscope. And that's scary to me. Like, for real, like, that's scary to me. And so when we talk about this cancel culture, I'm like, I want to know everything, sis, but like, I don't think that, I think that in the world that we lived in, if all of the thoughts that we shared before the internet was the internet, and before the awareness of how the internet would advance to where people can find your old MySpace, you think you done shut the shit down, and now the internet has evolved to where even your effort to conceal your error and to try to make amends can get leaked. Does that make sense? Like, it's just scary to me because I don't know the circumstances around everything, but I don't want to live in a world where it's just like, fuck you forever. Like, I just don't. Because then I don't know when that lens is going to turn my way, because inevitably we're going to piss off the masses. And if fuck you forever is the way they handle it, then that's a rejection that will be devastating to me, because I do love my Black people. I do love my American people. I do love this country. Like, so what's the way we can kind of try to like solution to bring it together in some way? That's what I really be wanting to see on TV. I watch the news all the time looking for that, and I never see that. I just see the ways in which we're so crazy and different from either side, you know?
Well, for me, I'm only interested in disengaging when I feel like you're dangerous, or I feel like you have resources that could be used in a dangerous way. But for me, all I just
I
want is
respect that
acknowledge.
force part. That's deep. Okay,
I
I get
just
it.
want, like for example, like J.K. Rowling,
Oh,
she's
fuck her and her
legitimately
name is on.
like, one, she can't be canceled because she has so much money, but the fact that she can't be canceled, I think is even more troubling for me, because it's like, not only do you have these views, but you're like super wealthy, and you can really use your wealth to influence some shit. Like, um, they're debating the Equality Act now. Some Republican senator quoted shit that she wrote to use against approving the Equality Act. So it's like, people like her need to be canceled, but ultimately, when you have, because we live in a capitalistic world, when you have money, or when you have access to other sources of money, you cannot be canceled. It just is what it is. But as far as like unearthing people's old stuff, it's not. I feel like people who are constantly marginalized, we are taught how to apologize, and we taught how to work through stuff. But people who are privileged, and whatever privilege that they have, they're not taught how to apologize. They're not taught how to acknowledge anything. So I like personally, I don't really care if you've evolved in your mindset or whatever. I just want you to acknowledge that you did it. I feel like because it's nobody wants to say that I'm that person because socially and capitalistically that's not good. Like nobody wants to be painted with the phobia or the phobic brush because it's a possibility that you might lose money. However, I just want for me it's more is more important for me that you risk possibly being painted as that at some point in the past to say, hey, I fucked up, I did something, I said something I shouldn't have. Or you can say, this was my mindset when I said and did these things. But the problem is a lot of people like feel like they are above it and that they don't have to do it. And they want the benefit of not being called the person when they did something that warranted them being called that person, i.e., the Kevin Hart situation. Like the Oscars weren't stolen from you. You had the opportunity to make a genuine and sincere apology, but you didn't do it. You didn't do it, and you stepped in front of your own opportunity. All you had to do was say, I fucked up, I didn't, not even that, oh, I love all gay people, like I fucked up, this is where my mind was, this is like, but like I feel like people aren't taught how to do that, especially people who are privileged. So like I think we're ever going to eradicate racism and homophobia anytime? No. And I don't expect people to change. But what I would like to see is just like um an acknowledgement of what you did and how you made people feel. And when we talk about things about like when we were talking about gaslighting and sea lining, like that's the perfect cure to people who have experienced gaslighting. Tell them that what they experienced was for real and it wasn't just made up somewhere and that they're just crazy. No,
that's part of it, right? Like atoning, like actually, it's actually acknowledging that there was a wrong,
yeah,
and
because
then
I
having
feel
a
like if
strategy for how
people
you're going to improve. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
because I feel like if people were if everybody was just to be progressive and all of that, I feel like they would also be phony too.
True.
If people would be like, oh, I'm on board and I don't like, I just don't think that would be true. I just want us as a culture to, because everybody can say stupid shit. Everybody, and that's why, I drag and I have fun, but with certain people, I'll give grace. Or like, I've been in situations where I've watched other people close to me get dragged, and people will try to get me to choose or to say something. And I'll be like, no, because I know this is this and that about a person. And then I'll tell the people that are dragging, I'm like, okay, I just hope that when it's your turn in the hot seat, that people will extend the same grace to you. Because we all need grace. Because we all mess up and we all do other stuff. But I just want a society where people account for the actual things that they did and not act like that. I think where we go wrong is when people act like nothing happened, and that's the problem with our country now. We don't even want to act like slavery happened, and that's why we continue to have the problems that we have, or act like we are not living in the effects of a racist country or a country that had slavery for like 400 years. So, like, let's say that we did it. Let's acknowledge the people that were impacted, and let's move on. And then, if they did that, they would be able to benefit because now they're in a world where they have access to education, or they would be able to say, back then it was different, but now I know that that's not appropriate, and I would never say that. And we could just move on, and people could move on to the next news story. but it's just like people are so invested in protecting their ego and being right. And well, I never did this, and I didn't. It's like we literally have the tweets, like like it with your like you did say it. So why don't we investigate why you're invested in not acknowledging it, and let's just try to work from there. So, girl, I feel like we did an episode.
I know, right?
So you want to end it out?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for all of our listeners and those who have returned and those who have donated and those who have subscribed and liked us on our social media platforms. But for those of you who are new, I would like for you to know that box number 512 has very interactive platforms on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube. And our podcast is available every place podcasts are sold. Also, we want you to keep in mind to follow us every Friday for our box number 512 live after show. Grown Black Trans Woman Talk Live with Aeon and the Lioness. And lastly, thank you so much for those who have donated, as I stated earlier. But for those of you who want to support Black trans business, please, please, please follow us on social media and donate, and make sure you contribute to what is a thriving and fledgling business. And thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. This is box number 512 podcast. I'm the Lioness.
And I'm Aeon.
And we welcome you to come back another time. Thank you.
All right. Bye, y'all. Thank you for listening to box number 512.
And don't forget to subscribe and like all of our pages on social media.
And don't forget to subscribe so you can see what we'll stock on the shelf next week. Bye.